Well, hello all you wonderful people out there in YouTube land, and welcome to the Texas Special YouTube channel. On this episode of Mo's Hobby Shop, we have this vintage, no pun intended, Bachmann Dewitt Clinton set. And you can't see it very well maybe you can, but it says here a complete ready-to-run electric train set, HO scale replica of one of America's earliest trains. Now, you can see this has a fold-up flap to show you what all it comes with. Now, this set comes with a locomotive with tender, 3 coaches, a 47 by 38 inch oval of nickel silver easy track, plug-in terminal re-railer, and power pack and instructions. And there's a nice little diagram of the track. So there's some cool little historical tidbits on the underside of this flap, right here and right here. This is an exact reproduction of the DeWitt Clinton train, which was built by the West Point Foundry, New York in 1831. It was named after the founder of the Erie Canal and was the 3rd public carrier to open under steam in America. The DeWitt Clinton made her maiden run on August 9th, 1831 from Albany to Schenectady in 46 minutes on the Mohawk and Hudson Railroad line. An eyewitness to the maiden run reported the locomotive, the DeWitt Clinton, stood upon a track already fired up with a train of some 5 or 6 passenger coaches attached to it. Upon arriving at the top of the inclined plane at Albany, on this memorable occasion, the peculiar appearance of the machine and train arrested his attention, and he at once resolved to make a sketch. The author had taken a hasty rough drawing of the machine and the shape of the first passenger coach, when a tin horn sounded and the word was given, all aboard. As there was no covering or awnings to protect the deck passengers upon the tops of the cars from the sun, the smoke and sparks, and it was the hot season of the year, summer, the combustible nature of their garments, summer coats, straw hats, umbrellas, soon became apparent that all aboard were unwittingly in for a most unusual railroad excursion. How shall we describe that start to my readers? It was not that quiet, imperceptible motion of the day. Now, if you want to read the rest of this, you can get one or find one at a train show and read it yourself. So you can see locomotive, tender, 3 coaches. Now, the motor for this is actually in the tender, not the locomotive. The locomotive is actually a dummy. So, to open this up, you open up the flap here and pull the box in its entirety out. Why does everything have to be harder on camera? Set the box aside. And the train itself comes in this little easily removable styrofoam tray. Now, underneath is where the power pack and track is stored, as well as the connecting wires and whatnot. As you can see, there is no track in this set. Power pack is there, but the track has been rated for other purposes. Sit the box down and take a look at these trains. Now, the locomotive, in addition to being in this little styrofoam tray, the locomotive sits in a little removable plastic tray inside the styrofoam tray, I guess for additional protection. I'm not sure, that'd be my guess. And there you have the locomotive. Very cool little engine. You got the engineer standing right there on that platform. You have all kinds of little separately applied piping details made out of brass wire. You got the piston right there for the engine. You have the little side rods there. As I said, this engine, the locomotive itself, is a dummy, so the wheels spin freely. You have I'm assuming that's the throttle. You have this cool little bit of detail right here between the steam dome and the smokestack, and you have this support for the smokestack right there on the boiler. It's a cool little engine. There's no doubt about it. These two are connected with itty bitty little screws on the drawbar on either end, so they do not come apart. Well, they do, but they don't easily uncouple. And then if we look at the tender there, you can see you have a couple of barrels, some wood for fuel, and protruding out there, that little nubbin, that's part of the motor shaft. And then this train has link and pin style couplers. So you see that little hole there, that's where the passenger cars couple into the locomotive, and they all couple into each other the same way with little link and pin couplers. Now I'm not going to pull every single one of them out for the detailed look. I'm only going to grab one because they are all the same. And apparently they want to fight with me coming out of the box. So 1831 railroad technology. You see these little levers here and here under my thumb? That was the brakes. These cars had hand brakes with brakemen. And you can tell these bear a startling resemblance to stagecoaches, because that's basically what they were at this era in railroad history, were stagecoaches that were put on platforms with flanged wheels. They were very rough riding. The track upon which they rode was not that great. It was strap iron rail, so it was literally strips of rail affixed to wood, and they would frequently come undone and coil up, causing what was called back then a snakehead, and rip through the floor of these wooden cars, and a few people were actually killed that way. There's your rooftop seating, or lack thereof. You have these little plastic railings here. You have the M&H-RR on the side of the car there. I know it's really hard to see. These wheels are plastic, and the little white trim on the rims is really cool. And you can see there that little hook. That's the coupler. That's the male coupler. Looking at the underside of this car, you can see some very minimalistic detailing as far as frame detailing. I'm not sure if they got that right, because, I'm not really that familiar with this era of railroading, but it looks right to me. It looks very convincing. So we'll get this thing together and put it on the track on the Stars Hollow Railroad and see how she runs. Now, just for giggly purposes, we'll turn the throttle slowly on the good old MRC Rail Power 1370 and see just when this guy starts moving. Right now I'm at about a quarter. Right around a third. So about 35% throttle, this guy starts creeping. And about 30% it shuts down. So not exactly the smoothest motor on the market, but this is an older model, and it probably honestly hasn't seen much run time. This is, of course, a DC train set, so if you own this or you want one and you have a DCC railroad, you could probably, if you were very creative, you might be able to squeeze an N or Z scale decoder in the wood load back here on the tender, maybe, depending on how the motor is configured. You may or may not be able to squeeze, if you can find one, a Z scale decoder into the boiler and run the wires to the motor. But you know, that'd be a tricky deal. I'm not saying it would be impossible. Or you could very easily squeeze an N scale or small HO scale decoder into one of the coaches and have it permanently tethered to the locomotive. If you are running just a basic oval of track, a basic loop with no plastic frogs anywhere, like on a switch or on a crossover track, then you know you'll be golden. This thing will run smoothly at pretty much any speed, so long as the motor's freely turning. Or if you're running powered, you know, switches with powered frogs or crossovers with powered frogs, and you know, and a frog juicer, then you should be good as well. But a cool little set, a nifty little set. The Lincoln pin couplers are. It's a very tight squeeze. There's very little wiggle room there, so it's easy to, if you're not careful and not deliberate, it's very easy to break something. So it's something to keep in mind if you have one of these and you've never run it, or you want to get one of these because you think it's cool. Those Lincoln pin couplers, they're not very forgiving, and it's just very thin plastic, so be mindful. Now that I was kind of expecting. Short wheelbase. There's no electrical pickup across all wheels of the locomotive, so I knew it was going to kind of stutter across these switches when it hit the frogs. Something I want to point out here. Notice the size difference between this track cleaning car and these coaches. Now this is accurate. This is accurate to scale of the size of the train in 1831. So that is one heck of a difference. If we put this little diesel switcher here on the track ahead of the DeWitt Clinton, you can really see just how much trains have evolved over the years, from these itty bitty little things here in 1831 all the way up to now. So, and even today this would be considered a small locomotive. But yeah, not a switch friendly engine. This is going to be full speed for this little locomotive. That's full throttle. The previous clip was about 3/4 throttle on the transformer, and this is what half throttle looks like, 50% throttle on the transformer. This is probably a much more accurate speed of what it actually did. Uh, right around a top speed for this engine. I know these early trains weren't that fast, and you know that even might be pushing it. I don't really want to run this guy this fast because it doesn't, to my head, it doesn't look right. But to get him over the switch frog, I've got to run him this fast. Right around 60% throttle is just enough so this guy can actually make it over the frogs or the switches without stuttering too terribly much or stalling. Thank y'all for watching. Hope you found it entertaining. Texas Special out.